and we're going to get out the way. Exodus, the 14th chapter, beginning at verse number 10. Exodus, the 14th chapter, beginning at verse number 10. Yeah, please stand if you stand. It says, and when Pharaoh drew near, the children of Israel lifted their eyes, and behold, the Egyptians marched after them. So they were afraid, very afraid, and the children of Israel cried out to the Lord. Then Moses said to Moses, because there was no graves in Egypt, have you taken us away to die in the wilderness? Why have you so dealt with us to bring us up out of Egypt? Is this not the word that we told you in Egypt, saying, let us alone that we may serve the Egyptians? For it would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians rather than that we die in the wilderness. And Moses said to the people, do not be afraid, stand still and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will accomplish for you today. For the Egyptians whom you see today, you shall see again no more forever. The Lord will fight for you, and you shall hold your peace. And the Lord said to Moses, why do you cry to me? Tell the children of Israel to go forward. But lift up your rod and stretch out your hands over the sea and divide it, and the children of Israel shall go on dry ground through the midst of the sea. And I will indeed will harden the hearts of the Egyptians, and they shall follow them. So I will gain honor over Pharaoh and over his army, his chariots and his horsemen. Then the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord. Then when I have gained honor for myself over Pharaoh, his chariots and his horsemen. Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, after you've done all you can, just stand.
Just stand. All right.
Just stand.
All right.
Amen. After you've done all you can, just stand. Amen. We see the children of Israel here were released from bondage after 430 years. And I want you to see something, because instead of God taking them the easy route by the Philistines, God took them the long way around by the wilderness of the Red Sea. And sometimes in life it seems like we're questioning God, trying to figure out what God is doing. Here it is, they could have taken the easy route, but God takes them the long way around. And it seems like sometimes in our life God is taking us the long way around. God has promised these people something. God has told them what he's going to give them, but yet he takes them the long way around to get to it. And some of us don't know what God is doing sometime in our life. God tells us he's going to give us some things, but it seems like the blessing is just delayed. And so God is here, is taking them the long way around. And while he's taking them the long way around, God is working a plan. And so this first point is God allowed it. And so here it is, after 430 years of being in bondage. Here they are very happy, and they're full of hope. They're probably excited because they have experienced an exodus. God has delivered on his promise, and God has done what he said he's going to do. And so here these people are marching on their way to the promised land. And can you imagine? I just want to paint the picture for you, because if we even look earlier in the week, some folks were upset because the president that's in office has rolled back some things that have been standing for over 60 years. And it seems like every time we take one step forward, we take a couple of steps back. These people here are excited. They're here. They're happy because God is leading them to where they need to go. And if we look in chapter number 13, we see that at the end of the chapter, it said that there's a cloud that's leading the people. So that means that God's glory was with the people on their way to the promised land. But I want you to see something in the scripture, because in chapter number 14, God does something that really don't make no sense, because he speaks to Moses and he tells Moses, I need you to have the people to camp here and just wait. What are you doing, God, when you you are leading me to the promised land, but I'm excited to get there, but all of a sudden you just tell me to wait. And we don't understand why God does what he does, but I gotta trust that God has a plan in it. The reason why God tells them to wait when he's talking to Moses, he said, I need to harden Pharaoh's heart and I need to eliminate him forever. So he tells them to wait. Watch this. And so what God needed Pharaoh to do was to pursue Israel on their way to the promise. But watch this. And so the reason why God allows them to be pursued is because God didn't want Israel's past problem to keep them from their promised land. And here it is. Sometimes in life, the reason why God is holding you up sometimes is because he don't want your past problem to keep you from your promise. And so here it is. God said, I didn't allow you to go to the way of the Philistines because I didn't want them to know war and turn back. And if God would have taken them that way, here they are because they have no faith. God is still working on them. They would have wanted to turn around. And some of us have been questioning God to figure out why God has done what God is doing. God said, if I would have put that in your way, you would have went back to doing what you were doing. You would have went back to your Coronas and your other beer. You would have went back to doing everything. You would have went back to selling some dime bags. So I had to take you the long way around so you wouldn't lose your faith. And so God said, I took them the long way around to the church so that their faith wouldn't be shaken. So here it is. So God didn't want Israel for the rest of their life to be looking over their shoulder. He didn't want Israel to be bothered in their promised land with their past problem. He didn't want them to be worried about being invaded. Here they are, already got all of these enemies around them. And so God said, if you got to worry about the Philistines, I don't want you to have to worry about the Egyptians as well. So I got to get rid of somebody. So here it is, Israel. God said, so I'm going to let you. God said, I didn't want you wondering in your promised land about the past things. We're wondering why, because we're wondering why we couldn't go back to the ex that we left. We're wondering why when they hit you up on your phone, God stopped it. But we're wondering why when the past job called, something better came along. We're wondering why when we saw one car, that car got denied, but then something better came along. And the reason why it came along is because God allowed it to show up. God sometimes will allow some things to happen because he's trying to show us who God is. And so God allowed it. And so it didn't really make sense that God would deliver them from bondage just to allow for their problems to pursue them. And so God said, no, but I'm going to let it happen because I need to get rid of this problem. Second point is no way out. Pharaoh, sure enough, hears word that the children of Israel are going to the promised land. His heart gets hard and said that he gets all of these chariots together, 600 chariots, and he goes after the Israelites. And so watch this in verse number 8. We see that as Pharaoh is preparing to go out with all his men, Israel don't know that the problem is coming behind them. So it says that Israel is bold when they go out. And here it is, sometime in life, we'll be bold as long as it's sunny outside. But when the rain begins to come, a lot of us will lose our faith. But God don't want your faith to get shaken when stuff already happened. But God says, still trust in them in the midst of the problem. And so here they are, they're worried. Here they are, they're bold as long as nothing has happened. We'll be bold as long as we got some money in our pocket. We'll be bold as long as it's sunny. We'll be bold as long as folks are giving us something. But as soon as the rain comes, some folks will begin to question God. And so watch this. Israel, problem is that from verse number 8 to verse number 10, the problem is that they lifted up their eyes. Says so as Pharaoh was coming behind and said that Israel looks up. And a lot of us won't get scared A lot of us won't get scared until it's almost closing in on us. We won't be afraid until the walls start closing in, until the mortgage company starts threatening us, until the loan company threatens that he's going to take your car. We won't start getting scared until we see the problem getting close. And so here it is. Pharaoh was behind the Israelites, but then the Red Sea was in front of them. So I want you to see something, because here it is. Pharaoh had 600 chariots, all these skilled fighters, all of these weapons. And so all the Israelites had, it said there were 6,000 men along with children. They didn't even account for the women. All of these people who had been in bondage didn't know how to fight. They weren't used to fighting. They were used to being submissive to the Egyptians. So here it is. The problem is coming after them. And so the problem is behind them, but then they got an obstacle in front of them. Because the Red Sea here is about 1,400 miles long and 221 miles wide. So they got a big problem in front of them. Israelites had no weapon. They didn't have anything to fight. And so they began to cry out to the Lord. I want you to see something in Scripture, because it said they cried out to the Lord. But when they cried out, they started complaining. And so here it is. The Scripture should show us that when we cry out to God, we ain't got no reason to complain. And so a lot of us say that we trust in God, but as soon as all hell breaks loose in our life, a lot of people, just like the Israelites, will lose their faith. A lot of us will lose our joy. A lot of us will lose our happiness. And here they are, they're crying out to God, please help us, God. But then they look at Moses and say, why did you bring us here just to die? And a lot of us are doing God the same way. God, I trust you over a little bit of stuff. I trust you just to get a light bill paid. But Lord, I don't know how much I can trust you when the doctor said I don't know what else to do. Lord God, I don't know how much I can trust you when I can't see a solution in sight. And the problem with a lot of us is that we're in between a rock and a hard place. But the Bible declares, don't lose your faith in this. And so I don't know about you. So I know I'm facing some things, but I still got hope in who I serve. And so here they are, they're crying out to God, but then they complain. And so here it is, that momentary inconvenience causes them to lose sight of the promise. I want you to see something on today, because if God promised me that he's going to do it, if God has already released me after 430 years, what makes you think that he's going to leave me in the wilderness? And if God has delivered you from other stuff in the past, if God has promised you something, what makes you think he's going to leave you on the end of this road? What makes you think that God's going to leave you at a dead end? Because if he promised it, God will do just what he said he'll do. And so here it is. Some of us let our momentary inconvenience make us lose sight of the promise. So some of us have been promised a new job, but then we get frustrated because we don't get the start date that we want. Some of us get a new car, but then we get upset because it takes more to fill this car up than it takes to fill up the last one. Some of us get a new house, but then we get mad because we got to pay a down payment. Some of us are getting mad over a momentary inconvenience, but if God promised it to you, God is going to bless you with what you need. And so, watch this. And so, that their momentary inconvenience almost caused them to go back. And a lot of folks say that here they are asking Moses, why did you bring us here to die? Moses, didn't we tell you just to leave us in Egypt? Didn't we tell you just to leave us alone? Why didn't you just let us serve the Egyptians? We were doing well for 430 years. And a lot of us would have been content in our mess if God had delivered us. A lot of us are satisfied where we are. A lot of us have got complacent with the status quo. A lot of us are comfortable where we are. But if God is trying to set you free, the Bible declares that those who are free are truly free indeed. And so if God delivered you, God will set you free indeed. And so they're here asking God, they're here complaining to Moses. Moses, you should have just left us where we were. And so here we are. A lot of us would do God the same way, Pleasant Grove. A lot of us ask God, why did you have to do this? God, that man was paying all my bills. Why you let me lose him? God, I can call that woman anytime I wanted to. She'll cook me a good meal. Why did she have to walk out on me? God, why did you take me to this place? I was comfortable where I was. Why you had to bring me here? But God is saying, if I brought you to it, I'm going to bring you through. And so sometimes between a rock and a hard place, it's hard to see how God is working and how it's going to work it. A lot of us are looking to see what God is going to do, how God is going to work it out. But I just tell you, just hand it over to Jesus and believe that God is going to work it out. Look at somebody and say, God is working it out. So here they are between the seat and their problem, but God is working because they didn't know that Moses had already had a conversation with God. And when God didn't give a promise to you, sometimes it's hard to see how it's going to work out. God had already guaranteed Moses, you're going to have some victory. So this third point is staying. Moses said, I hear your complaint. But Moses said, I've already had a conversation with God. Folks are trying to figure out how you still got your joy, how you ain't lost your mind yet. But you said, I had a conversation with God, and because he's already done it before, because he's promised it, God is going to do just what he told me he's going to do. Has there anybody in this building ever had a conversation with God? God ever promised you anything? And I don't know about you, I'm just like David. David said, I don't see it yet. Sometimes the wicked may prosper. He said, but I never seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging bread. And so I know if he done it before, he's going to do it again. If he promised it, God going to do just what he said he'll do. And so watch this. And so that problem caused them to forget that God had already delivered them. So a lot of us, our problem is that God has already brought you out, but then here you are doubting God for what he can do. And so God delivered them after 430 years of bondage when nobody else could bring them out, when no one else could deliver. God was able to do what he said he was going to do. And so God here, God said, why would I leave them in the wilderness if I already delivered you from exile, delivered you from captives? If I've already delivered you, what I'm going to leave you here at this point for? And so watch this. They're probably looking at Moses and wondering why Moses ain't afraid. They're probably looking at Moses trying to figure out if all his senses are right. They're trying to figure out why Moses is not panicking, why Moses ain't calling on the Lord. And because he had already had that conversation, God had already promised him and told him what the plan was. And so watch this. I want you to see something. Moses tells them, Moses said, don't be afraid. The problem with a lot of us, we call ourselves Christians. We call ourselves child of God. We sit on the front row. We put on the church hats. We put on the suits. We're at every Bible study. We're at every Sunday school, but we still ain't got no faith in God. And so God said it's easy to trust in me when everything is going right. But let all hell break through in your life and see if you're still going to trust in God. Let some things come up like it and see if you're still going to trust in God. But here's the thing. If God has already blessed me in the past, I already know what he can do for me in the present. And so here it is. Moses said, fear and faith don't go together. He said, these two don't walk together because fear is the faith. Fear is the enemy of faith. And so here it is. You can't claim to trust in God. You can't claim to believe in God, but here you are fearful. He said, learn how to have a little faith. Watch what he tells them. He said, stand still. And when you stand still, I want you to see the salvation of the Lord. Watch as Moses tells them to stand still. What is he telling them? He said, don't fear. Don't lose heart. Don't let your fear cause your faith to fail. That's all he's telling them. He said, just make yourself to stand. All he's telling them is stand your ground. Stand still and wait on the Lord. The problem with a lot of us is that we don't know how to wait on God. Here they are ready to walk back. They're ready to walk backwards. They're ready to lose their position. They're salvation of the Lord. All he was telling them to learn how to be quiet and watch God work. A lot of us are talking too much when God is trying to do what he's trying to do. Just be quiet and watch God work. And so, literally what he's telling them, when we look at salvation, this word is simple and rooted. It means to, he's going to make room for us. Or he's going to make space for us. And won't God step in your problem and just make some room? Here they are between a rock and a hard place. But he said this salvation is going to make some room for you. And God going to make room, the doors that you never thought were open for you. The things that you never thought you would step into. If you would just stay still and watch God, God is making some room for you in this season. And so watch what he tells them. And this is the part that I like. He said, the Egyptian that you see today, you won't have to see him no more. And I'm glad when my enemy pursues me sometimes. Because when God began to work, God said, I'll make your enemies your sister. He said, the one that you see today, the one who has been oppressing you, the one that has been stabbing you in the back, the one that has been beating you for so long, the one that had talked about you, told you that you would never get delivered from this place, is the one that you would never have to see again. And so I'm looking at my enemy and say, God, I ain't got to see you no more, because God is getting ready to work in this season. That's somebody that's been held back by some things, but God said, look at the problem right now and go ahead and deal with it in this moment, because you won't have to see it again. I don't know if anybody came here dealing with any problem, but I'm glad that God said we ain't got to see it no more. But watch this. God said, watch Moses said that the fight ain't yours. And he tells us something that we can apply in our life today. He said, hold your peace. And let the Lord fight your battle. A lot of our problem is that we still trying to fight. We got our knives out. We got our hands up. We got our mouth open. We got the fist ready. And we're ready to fight. And a lot of us, I need to just chill out sometime and let God just work. And God said, don't worry about this fight, because this fight ain't yours. It's the Lord. And the reason I know it's the Lord, because God had already told Moses that I'm allowed for them to follow you into the wilderness. Do you see what's happening on today? Because it was orchestrated by God. God said, it's my fight. It ain't your fight. Some of us are fighting battles that were never ours to begin with. We're fighting battles with folks who ain't never ours to begin with. But God said, since I allowed it, I'm going to handle it on today. Hold your peace. Let the Lord fight your battle. All he's telling them is to be quiet. Look at somebody and say, be quiet. He says, stop complaining. Stop telling me that why did you deliver me? Stop telling me why did you bring me to the wilderness just to die? Stop telling me that you should have left us alone. He said, be quiet and let the Lord handle it. That's all he's telling them on today. Be quiet and stop complaining. And I want you to see that sometimes our mouth will hinder us from getting victory. Sometimes we're holding our own self back. We want to blame God for what God is not doing. But sometimes if you would just close your mouth, God can begin to work. If you would stop talking so much, if you would stop complaining so much, God can do what God is going to do. And so he said, stop asking why, because this battle ain't yours. Focus, find a point and move forward. Watch what he tells Moses. Moses looked to the Lord. And the Lord said, what you crying to me for? And he said, why are you crying to me? Go ahead and tell the children of Israel, go forward. God is telling us the same thing. He said, stop crying to me about it, because I've already worked it out. But Moses, what are you about to cry for when I've already told you what the plan was? A lot of us have been promised things by God, but the reason why we're missing our blessing is because we're too busy complaining. If God has already told you he's going to do it, stop complaining, stop crying about it, and just move forward. And so here he is. He said, stop crying over the problem and keep on moving forward. Here's the thing. Here's the thing, girl. Sometimes I like watching scary movies. And The one thing I hate in a scary movie is that when somebody's running, they fall and they start crying. Instead of getting up, they get to crying. They get to backing up, they don't even run no more. They see the problem in front of them, but they still won't run. And so here it is, they know that the enemy is behind, but they won't run, they just cry. And so here it is, that if you care about your life, you need to learn how to get up and move forward. If you care about your life, you need to run like your life depends on it. God said, don't worry about the seed. He said, just don't give up and don't go back. And that's all God is telling us on today. Stop worrying about the problem. Just get up and keep running. And I'll handle the seed later. But you need to run for your lives like it depends on it. And so God said, go towards the sea. And God tells them something that's just impossible. How are we going to get past this Lord's sea? God, this thing is treacherous. This thing is unmovable. We know it can't move on today. But God tells Moses something that God is telling us today. God tells Moses, if you just lift up your hands, I'll begin to work some stuff out in this season. And a lot of our problem is that instead of crying and complaining, we need to learn how to lift up our hands sometimes. And if you lift up your hands, God will begin to work some stuff out in this season. God said, Moses, you got something in your hand that nobody else have. It's just like in Exodus 4, when Moses just sees a rod, but God sees power. He said, Moses, what's in your hand? Moses said, it's a rod. God said, I see more than that. And I don't know about you, if you would just lift up your hands sometime, just like Moses. He said, if you lift up your hand with a rod in your hand, God, I'm going to divide this sea. I'm going to allow for it to part on today. And not only will I allow for it to part, he said, but they're going to walk over on dry ground. And I don't know about you, in this next season of my life, I'm not standing still, but I'm moving forward because I know even though the sea is there, God is going to allow for me to walk over on dry ground. My shoes won't get muddy. My pants won't get muddy. I don't know about you, but God is going to take you to your next season, into your next promise, if you would just learn how to move. And God said, they're going to walk over on dry ground. And watch what he tells Moses. He said, indeed, I'm a harden the hearts of the Egyptians so that they'll follow you. And watch this, the only way they follow you, but I'm going to get the glory in this. And so even though you walking over on dry ground, here they are on their chariots and all of their in technology, but I'm going to allow for that to get stuck because you ain't going to have to see them no more. Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, after you done all you can, just stand. And so God tells them that the pursuit was necessary because God needed them to pursue the Israelites so he could do what he could do. And so I don't know about you on today. I've gone through some things. I've had some problems in my life. But I know that if I would just lift up my hands, if I would just keep moving forward, God is going to deliver me in this season. Is there anybody here, Pleasant Road, that ever received the promise from the Lord? And the songwriter declares that I've come too far to turn around. I don't know about you on today, but if God has brought me from Egypt to the Red Sea, he ain't brought me this far just to leave me. And the songwriter declares that I've come too far to turn around. And so I know somebody has been sick in the building. I know somebody has been catching hell since last year. I know somebody has lost some things, but go. Keep moving forward. Because after you've done all you can, he said, just stand. Just stand standing. Standing requires us to have faith in God. Standing requires us to trust God even though we're looking at the sea that's behind us and the problem that's in front of us. Standing requires us to believe God when it seems impossible. God said, yes, the enemy is here. You've been happy since chapter 12 because you had an exodus. You have time to eat the Passover meal. You've had time to camp twice. He said, but now that you see the problem, you want to lose your faith. But God said, no, don't stop here at the sea, but keep moving forward. And that's the kind of God I serve. I've gone through some things. I've been through hell. Somebody been dealing with stuff across this week. But God said, keep moving forward. Don't lose your faith because you see the problem. Don't lose your faith because it's been orchestrated by God. But he said, keep moving forward. If they wouldn't have pursued the Israelites would have to keep looking over their shoulder. God said that when I get you to the promised land, I don't want you to have to worry about your problems because I would have handled it for you. So he needed Israel to have a little faith. He needed Israel to see who he was. He needed Israel not only to see that he could deliver them from bondage, but he could also handle their oppressor. What could have God would he have been if he had delivered them, but he allowed the problem to persist? So God said, no, I got to handle it. And God does things in his way for a reason. We don't know why God does it, but he's doing it for a reason. You've been questioning God, why that I had to get sick? Why did it have to happen this way? God, why did I lose my job when the other person wasn't doing their job either? God, why did my car have to get repossessed even though I missed one payment? God said, don't question me because I'm God. All right. But if I promise you that I'm going to do it, he said it won't happen because the reason why God is doing it because God's already prepared something better. And I don't want you to turn around because Egypt ain't where it's at. Because God has delivered them in Egypt, yes, he could have. But God said, this ain't your promised land. God said, I got to get you to where I need you to be. And that's what God is trying to let us see on today. I could have let you get the promotion on the job, but that job wasn't for you. I could have let you move forward and move and build and rebuild a house where you was, but that wasn't for you. But I got something better for you. And so don't question God on your way to the promise. When he's just trying to handle your problem. God said, after you've done all you can, and after you fought your last fight, after you used all the breath you could, after you have called up the prayer line, he said, you just stand. Whether you're dealing with your child, whether you're dealing with things at work, dealing with health issues, he said, you just stand after you've done all that you can. Just stand.